Most organisations will need funding at some point, so the following chapter gives useful tips and approaches that have worked for other groups. You can also get lots more tips on funding and finance in the Keeping Going guide.
Funding is money, but if you look at it in terms of resources, it doesn't have to be money. It can be people, it can be things like bartering and time banking and all that kind of stuff. So you might be able to find somebody that's very good at drawing up those policies and procedures and those governance documents, and they might be able to come in and do that for you in turn for you doing something for them.
It can be a real challenge when you get turned down for funding to your confidence, because you might have spent several weeks putting together a funding application and then it just gets rejected. But I think the trouble is there are so many people going for funding, and when you haven't got a track record, it can be difficult to start out.
We were at very early stages of the funding journey, and we've just started to work with the funding officer at Southampton Voluntary Services. But what we are finding is that as a new organisation, if you haven't got a track record and able to prove that you can handle money that you receive, people are not as interested. It appears that you're better applying to several smaller pots of funding and possibly even local funding.
On old funding applications, cut and paste is wonderful. So if you spent a lot of time on something, you don't have to start from scratch again with a new application. All application forms are going to be a bit different, but some of the basics about your aims and what you want to achieve and everything, it can be used again.
If you understand what your aims are, but also what you do well. And what we're doing at the moment is, because we are applying for funding, is to align the funding to what it is that we already do. So what we're doing is we're working to our strengths. We're not reinventing our own wheels. We're doing what we're good at. And as it transpires, we've become quite good at getting people involved and providing opportunities. And our new work we've got actually with Spectrum coming up, which we're really looking forward to, it's right on the pitch right now about providing opportunities for people to come into an environment which we can provide to have work experience, learn new skills.
If you don't think you qualify, don't even bother trying. Make sure you read the criteria, because some things have very strict criteria. Well, I remember at school, teachers always used to state in the exams, make sure you answer the question. And I think that's very true of funding applications. They're asking you things for a reason, and if you don't answer it, they're going to discount you without even really reading your application.
For any emerging ULO, I would say get training on funding and find out who the networks are. And can you get training from national voluntary organisations? Is there a local voluntary organisation that will give you some training? But get that training that's suitable to the culture of what you're trying to do.
You've got to try to develop a nose for, well, this looks useful. If it doesn't look useful, if you're not sure, then move on, otherwise you get bogged down. But where building up a network of contacts is really important is in this area, because it's one of the things that you can draw on other people's knowledge and pick their brains. That's a very good way to sort of navigate your way through all this sort of massive information that's out there about funding. The other thing that surprisingly few people do, but they really should, is if you find a funding body who you think might be suitable for funding the sort of work you're interested in, is before you do anything else, is contact them and have a chat with them. They will usually be more than happy to give you advice, because it's in their interest as well to get funding applications that are actually right for them.
Let's look back at some of the things learned in this chapter.
It's best to go for small pots of funding first, so that you have a track record of managing funds. This will be a big help when applying for more funding later on.
Find out as much as you can about the funders you are thinking of applying to by researching what their priorities are and the kinds of work they have funded in the past.
This information will usually be on their websites. It's well worth contacting them to discuss your plans before putting in an application as well. They'll be happy to answer any questions you have and advise you on how to apply for funding. Exercise 1. Do some research on what funding opportunities might be available for the type of work that you want to do. You can refer to the list of resources that accompany this film to help you get started. Exercise 2. Make a short list of 3 or 4 that are the most relevant to you and get as much information about them as you can.